Greetings. Today I will tell you some more stories from my book, A Day in United States History, Book 2. This batch of 6 stories are from July through September and are much shortened versions of the articles in the book. This is the last podcast in this series about the 366 Days in Colonial History series. If you like the stories I am relating, please follow me on YouTube, where a video version of this podcast will be available. On January the 6th, 1766, Jonathan Mayhew died. He originated the phrase, "no taxation without representation." The phrase that became the motto of the American Revolution originated in a sermon given by a clergyman named Jonathan Mayhew in 1750 during a sermon he gave in Boston's Old West Church. A native of Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts, Jonathan Mayhew graduated from Harvard in 1744 and then from the University of Aberdeen, Scotland in 1749. He became an ordained minister in 1747 of Boston's West Church. He became an ardent opponent of Parliament's attempt to tax the American colonies. He favored colonial union and used his sermons to advocate for American liberty. On the 100th anniversary of the English King Charles I's execution, January the 30th, 1749, he delivered a sermon in which he uttered this phrase, quote, "no taxation without representation," unquote. Many consider his sermon the opening salvo of the American Revolution. On August the 13th, 1728, Russian explorer Vitus Bering determined that there was no land connection between Russia and North American continent. Tsar Peter I, Russia's appointed Vitus commander of a mapping expedition, determined Russia's eastern boundary and the nature of the North American continent. On a voyage that would reach 3,500 miles in length along the Siberian coast, Bering determined that Russia had no land connections with the North American mainland, the first explorer to accomplish this task. Residents of the colony of Connecticut received word on September the 3rd, 1774, that British soldiers had attacked citizens living in Boston. In just a few days, over 20,000 men had assembled to travel to Massachusetts to fight the British. 2 days later, the First Continental Congress assembled in Philadelphia. That story is included in the book also. King George III issued the Proclamation of 1763 on October the 7th, 1763. The proclamation banned English settlement on a line drawn roughly along the Appalachian Mountains. The proclamation angered many colonists that wanted to settle in the resource-rich Ohio River Valley. Many considered the proclamation one of the leading causes of the Revolutionary War that happened over a decade later. George Washington, in his 1753 expedition to reach French Fort Le Boeuf, traveled nearly 1 month through a trackless wilderness before reaching what would become one of the most strategic points in British North America, the Forks of the Ohio. He reached it on November the 24th, 1753. He and his men emerged from the forest to have their first view of the junction of the Monongahela and Allegheny Rivers, the source of the mighty Ohio River. Washington will report the site to Virginia's Royal Governor Robert Dinwiddie, who would later dispatch a militia force to build a fort at the site. Washington's mission to reinforce this force would fight a battle with French forces that would kick off the French and Indian War. 10 days after the Boston Tea Party, the members of the Philadelphia Committee for Tarring and Feathering met with the captain of the ship that had tea in its hold on December the 16th, 1773. You kind of wonder what the members of that, what their main task was. At any rate, the committee members threatened the captain with an American exhibition United States history tea. Understanding the implied threat, the captain returned to his ship, weighed anchor, and departed Boston. This is the last podcast in this series about the 366 Days in Colonial History series. If you like the stories I am relating, please follow me on YouTube for a video version of this podcast of United States history in every month January of the year, allowing readers to read one interesting story for a day for an entire year. It is a great introduction to history for no taxation. The book is almost 800 pages. The phrase that became the motto of the American Revolution. The book is part of my 366 Days in United States history named John. There are two Jonathan books in the series. 1750 during a sermon he gave in Boston's Old West West
The books are available in
a
ebook,
native of Martha's
softbound, and
Vineyard,
audiobook
Massachusetts,
format on
Jonathan
Amazon,
Mayhew
Barnes & Noble,
graduated from
Apple,
Harvard in
and many other
1744,
online book
and
retailers.
then from the University
You
of
can find
Aberdeen,
it on my
Scotland in
website,
1749.
www.mossyfeetbooks.com, where you can purchase it direct from me. You can also purchase a box set of both books if you wish. Residents of Southeast Indiana can find my books in Batesville at the Walnut Street Variety Shop on George Street. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and thank you for